Mm-hmm. Who was your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher. I had several teachers I thought a lot of, but there was one favorite teacher, and you hear older folks sometimes talk about the fact that some teacher influenced them and influenced their life.
Yeah.
Several teachers did that to me, but one in particular was a Mr. Franklin. And Mr. Franklin was the treasurer at Central High School in Omaha, Nebraska. All the teachers had another function or another duty that they had to take care of. And he, for years and years, Mr. Franklin was the treasurer of the school, plus his teaching credentials and whatever brought him to being the teacher in charge of mechanical drawing. Mechanical drawing. That's where we learned the drawing with the instruments and lines and so on, like we were talking about Nolan today. And he influenced me in that, encouraged me to always do better, better, better. And I was his best student, and I knew that. He sat in the back of the class so that you couldn't see him, and he would be watching you the entire period you were in the mechanical drawing class. If you moved or stood up or anything, he would know it because he was sitting behind you. And my drawings were always the best. And what you did is you brought the drawing to him when you had it ready to ink it. We didn't have, talking about photographs and things like that, we didn't have blueprint places and so on. You took the drawings that you made, and I wish I had them now, and with pen and ink, you drew the lines and the circles and the lettering, fancy lettering, and you would do that with ink, and not have photostatic copies like,
right.
Not like today, like before today. And anyway, he encouraged me to always do better, do better, do better. Then every time after you finished doing the pencil drawing, then you did the ink drawing. And after you did the ink drawing, then you went up to him with your book, mechanical drawing book. And he would, teachers always told you don't make any marks or whatever on your book. But it was standard practice for him because he would take the book from your hand, hold it, go to the next drawing, a degree of difficulty, and he would check it. And that was your drawing, your next drawing, until you went through the process again.
Okay.
But he was the one that saw that, I don't know how to put it, he knew that I lived during the Depression time because we were coming out of the Depression time in the 40s then, and going to relatively good times if it hadn't been for World War II. So he was the one that noticed that I was conservative with the ink, I was conservative with the pencils, I was conservative with anything that he would give to me to use. And I can remember that I had my inking tools and all the tools that I had in the mechanical drawing classes were ancient, and I just took real good care of them. And I can remember a lot of times thinking, oh, I wish I had that tool. I wish I had that inking pen and whatever. And he could see that, and every now and then he would see to it that I got a special tool or something that I would need for doing the next difficult thing.
Very cool. So Mr. Franklin.
He's so silly. I'm thinking of a 50-cent piece. He he asked me, way early in my year, I was there 4 years, it's a 4-year high school, and he asked me if I would handle the ticket sales for all athletic events that happened inside the building. Now, we didn't have, we had football then and so on, but not outside vending events, inside vending events, which mainly was wrestling, which wrestling in the Middle West is a big sport, and basketball in the Middle West is a big sport. So he wanted me to handle the ticket sales on those days, and sit in the little ticket office that when we went on one of our, Mom and I, when we went on one of our trips back there for the reunion, I could see where they had plastered over the ticket booth, because they said, there's no ticket booth there, and I'd say, yeah, right there, and then I'd see the little line and so on, and you could see where the ticket booth was. And tickets then were 50 cents, so the most common thing was 2 quarters, or really common was a 50-cent piece, because you didn't like to carry 50-cent pieces in your pocket, they were too big. So when they got their ticket to go see the wrestling match or whatever, 50-cent pieces were the most. And then he would get things started and so on, and then he would take off, his day was finished, and then I would have the 50-cent pieces for the ticket stubs, and I'd not reconsider them, but anyway, I would balance them.
Reconcile.
Yeah, so that they would be there. So he did that, and I know the reason he did it. I'll say the word hungry, but I don't mean hungry, hungry that I hadn't eaten or something like that, but hungry for a lot of things, for good tools, for good books, and for things that I would need, and then he most of the time my salary for being in charge of the ticket sales and then bringing in the money the next day, generally I got 50 cents, and sometimes if it was a full house, I might get $1, I might get 2 50-cent pieces.
Oh, wow.
So, but he influenced me the most. Then finally, my junior year, he approached me and said, I have a friend that needs someone like you to come in on 1 day a week, Saturdays, and do the required drawings. And did you want to continue the same?
Sure, go ahead.
And do these drawings for a company. Okay, the company turned out to be the McGrath Iron and Steel Works, which is the company that's listed on my Social Security, because when you got your Social Security in those days, you had to come up with the name of a firm where you had been working. McGrath Iron and Steel Works was where it was. During the war, and the war was just ending, during the war they did work for the Union Pacific Railroad. The machinist would need a print, just like the prints that I had been making at school. The machinist would need a print to go ahead and follow the instructions on the permit to center things. It was again like the drive, the shaft for the wheels on a steam engine. It would have technically 2 holes. It'd be an arm and 2 holes, and they, for all the different steam engines and so on, they'd be different. It wasn't a standard thing. The distance from the holes that had to be drilled, the size of the hole, so that you could put a bearing in there and so on, and that was the rods that ran the Union Pacific Railroad thing. Anyway, that was the important thing. So anyway, on Saturday mornings, they worked Saturdays. During the war, they worked every day. And so on Saturday mornings, I showed up there, and just like you see in old films, there were steps going up, and then the steps would lead to a little bitty office or windows where whoever was up there could see the whole operation. And it was really something for me to be able to do that, to see the operation. Then, without going into all the details, there would be sets of prints that would be needed for the various machinists and milling machines. You have milling machines that smooth out the metal and so on, and then center the different holes and so on. And anyway, I was gonna comment
You go
on
up there and draw them?
yes, I would be up there and I would make the drawings for the different machinists and so on. And because I had things and I set them up and I indexed them and did everything else, because sometimes I could use duplicates. Anyway, on Saturday morning, I do that, and the machinist would be, where's my job? Here, this is your job. Oh, this was marked for you. And they would then know how thick to make the slab of iron, and where they had to mill the iron with a knife, a knife of steel that could cut iron, because steel could cut iron, iron can't cut steel. Anyway, I would do that for them, and I was paid 95 cents an hour, and again, it was good, and it was all set up by Mr. Franklin, who was the man that we're talking to. He had set this up through his friend McGrath, who owned this company. So I was doing that, and they were paying me for a day, but I was doing a half a day's work, and I knew that. And I told Mr. Franklin that, this is only a half a day's work, and I'm not entitled to a full day's work. He said, we're gonna do something else. He says, Mr. McGrath's already approached me. If you want to, after you get through doing all the drawings, and if there's still time left in the 8 hours, they would like you to bring some old clothes in and have them, and finish out your 8 hours on the floor, helping whoever needed help. So various people would need help, and then I would help them at 95 cents an hour. And it got to where on holidays or Sundays even, although on Sundays my social activities took place on Sunday, which involved the church. So I couldn't do it every Sunday, but I would show up and work by just whatever the guys on the floor wanted. The two most popular guys on the floor that wanted me, that would ask me, they'd ask the foreman, I'd like to have him today, or I'd like to have him 2 hours left, 3 hours, I'd like to have him. The two most popular spots for me was the blacksmith, and that was the one I loved the most, and the welder. The welder was all right, but I was too keen on the welder because I liked the idea of looking into the bright welds. I liked the working with the blacksmith, and I'm talking about old-time blacksmith. It was my job to start the fire, keep the forge going, and making sure that the fire in there was all right, because with the blacksmith, replaced it with tools that went on the tractors that the farmers used. And at the end of the war, the tractors were really beat, and we had replacement parts that I got to make and forge, and 2 teeth on them, on buckets for tractors, and I got to do that with the blacksmith, and that I loved because he was good, and we were a good team. Hold the metal into the forge, get it hot, hit it with the hammer, shape it, curve it, put it on a bender, and do all kinds of things, and I just loved it. And I loved it because it was physical, and I wasn't doing enough physical things in those days. And as a teenager, it was good to have physical things to do.
Mhm.
And that all came about because of Mr. Franklin, who was not the only teacher that
Influenced.
yeah, you might wanna do it at another session, but,
Mhm.
cause Mr. Franklin undoubtedly was the one that did the most for me, but there were other teachers too that encouraged me in
Okay,
different ways.
well, that's a good question. We'll get that next time then.
Yeah,
Some of the other teachers. Okay. I'll see you
yeah,
guys.
some other time.